Hey guys, I wanted to give an update on my health after the my open heart surgery. I get ready to go. I had said in my previous video when I had was given details, you know, I do this. I do not know why, but I can't do math when it comes to my age. I'm 63. I said I was 62, and it's so funny because what messed me up is my husband just had his birthday. And we are 2 years apart. And it's so funny because every time he has a birthday, I start having to figure out the math of how old I am. And that's not something like once I hit 40, that's when it started happening. I was like, I would forget how old I was. Or no, 44. I think 44 was my favorite year that I just said. But I think I stopped there and then I just stopped doing any of the math. Anyway, so I'm 63 years old and I'm actually coming up on my 6-month checkup this week, and so I go do my follow-up with the cardiologist office, and they're just gonna, see how I'm doing. I don't know if they have me on one medication now. It's a really tiny little dose. I don't know if they're gonna take me off of it or not. And then I go for another CAT scan at the year mark, which would be November the 12th. And then from there, I don't know, they're going to see me once a year, once every 2 years, whatever. But really, all in all, I'm doing really good. I feel good. I am back to, moving around, doing the things that I want. I'm actually lifting things and moving things. A lot of things went by the wayside for the last, well, I could say 10 years now, because I had to wait this long. But from the time I was diagnosed up until I had surgery, I was so restricted and limited as to what I could do. Or I had a weight restriction of 40 pounds up until the, I guess it was like the 2 months before the surgery, and that's when they lowered it to 20 pounds. But with that, even with the 40-pound limit, it really hindered me on doing things because fear factored into it. That's what I'll say. And because, when you hear the word, this was my diagnosis. I had a bicuspid valve, which means instead of 3 flaps, you have only 2. So you're born with 2 flaps instead of 3. And so when when the valve opens and closes, it's not sealing properly. And it got to the point where it was affecting other parts of my heart, and it caused a stenosis on a valve, and then it also caused an aneurysm in my ascending aorta, which I'm glad they found it. I didn't handle it really well when they first diagnosed me. When they first diagnosed me, I was pretty mad at the doctor when he told me that, because I was on a mission trying to find out what was going on with me. I shortly after that was diagnosed with Hashimoto, and that was what was going on. And I was trying to resolve that when they found this. And so I was like, I don't have time for this. How in the world can you say something like this to me? I was so aggravated, and it just ticked me off. And I went to the cardiologist for the first time. And, one, he didn't give me a lot of information, or I think I tuned a lot of what he said out. And I have a tendency when, I get to like a certain word, and it's like I hear that and then I just shut it down. Well, that's what I had done. And what he described the aneurysm as, and this, when I finally just had to look it up and say, bottom line, just say it. But he had said it was ascending aortic dilation. That's how he described it. Well, I went home and I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? I knew what it sounded like, and I was hoping that's not what it was. And so I went looking it up, And sure enough, I said, I just typed it in. Does ascending aorta dilation mean you have an aneurysm? And it just said yes. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Well, you know, I had a family member that died of an aneurysm, but the aneurysm was in their leg and they just dropped dead on the floor. And that scared me thinking about that. And I'll tell you what, once I came to that realization, it was like everything after that was just like, I don't know if you would call it blocking it out, but I was just like, this just can't be real. This can't be real. And at the same time, it's like, at the time, I didn't think I felt different. And what happens is that you live with it. And so, at that time, you know, I was in my 50s, and at that time, I'm just kind of living day to day. Nothing seemed any different. I had lived with it for this long. Who knows how long I had had this aneurysm and had been walking around with this thing on me. But I didn't think I felt any different. I thought I accounted everything to age. Oh, I'm just getting older. But it was affecting me in so many different ways, whether it be, you know, a little bit short of breath. Oh, you're just out of shape. You need to go ahead and walk some more or whatever. But at the time that I was diagnosed, my husband and I, when we go to the mountains, we would hike, and I'm telling you, we would hike in to a place that might be 8 miles in and 8 miles back out. We would, if we chased after, so say for example an elk, they're pretty quick in the woods. If we went after an elk, you're talking some pretty good huffing and puffing, going through the mountains and over the hills and down through drainages and back up the other side, following a herd. And I was doing that. And so I was like, how can this be? This just doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, it was affecting me, because that was also why it was just like I was getting to the point where I'd have to stop. I have to take a break. But I kept, contributing it to, I'm just getting older. That's what I did. Well, you know, as this went on, and after I finally had the surgery, and, you know, maybe my surgery was a little bit different than, well, I say a little bit, maybe it was a lot different than everyone else's, because from the things that I've heard, I mean, my surgery was not anything like what people described. I didn't have the pain at all that other people had. Now, mind you, they cut through my sternum, they would cut through the nerves and the muscles in my chest. I went through and my incision is, I would guess probably, I don't know, 10 inches, maybe about 10 inches long. And so it wasn't any different. And then when they cut, they cut out an artery and sewed in a new valve, I just didn't have that pain that people had, and I can't explain it. I do have a high pain tolerance, but still, you would still think that you would feel, people describe agony, and I just did not have that at all. Now, did I live on pain pills? No. For the, I was on, they had me on 2, I think it was oxycodone, 2 times a day. So that would be every 12 hours that I would get 1 oxycodone, and the rest of it was Tylenol. That's all I got was Tylenol. And even that, the Tylenol they were giving me was, I think it was like every 4 to 6 hours. Once I came home, basically it was the same thing. And so the first week I stayed right on schedule with my pain medicine, but I wasn't loopy, knocked out, or anything like that. I stayed on schedule. So, but the only pain that I had really was when I would sneeze, or sneeze or cough, because the sternum, you know, it's still trying to heal. And so, you know, you've got either brackets, or you might have titanium ties or wire, or I think they call them, I don't know, wires. Some people get plates to screw their sternum back together. And that was the only time that, regardless, even on pain medicine, that I would feel any pain. And it was like an instantaneous, you'd sneeze and you'd feel it right then, and that was over. But it would, you know, that was the only pain that I really had. And then as it went on, so I was on, I weaned down to where, I guess it'd been 2 weeks. At the 2-week mark, I was 1 a day, and that was mainly at night for me to be able to go to sleep, because I was having restless leg, which I was having restless leg before the surgery. But it seemed like when I started to try to gravitate towards sleeping a little bit more flat, my restless leg seemed to be more irritated. Well, I found that if I would take something for pain before bed, and I checked with the doctor to find out if I could take the restless leg medicine that I take, and I'm going to show you that, because that stuff I'm going to tell you is a lifesaver. It's by Hyland's, and it's called Restless Leg PM. And it's amazing. You just put, you know, whether 1, 2, 3, I put 3 under my tongue, let them melt, and you're able to go to sleep, but it stops it so fast. But it's Hylands is how you spell that, but it's for restless leg, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, so I would take a pain pill at night, just so that I would not have any pain. I can get some restful sleep at night. And I would also take a Tylenol and the restless leg, and I would sleep through the night. I would get up in the morning. If I felt any kind of pain or whatsoever, I would just, you know, take a Tylenol. So I started gravitating over towards the Tylenol. I guess about the 3-week mark, it seemed like I got to where I would take maybe a pain pill like every other day. But I called the doctor's office, because I knew that my go-to always was for pain, Tylenol, 1 Tylenol and 1 ibuprofen, but I wanted to make sure that that was okay before I did that. So I called them, and they said, yep, that would be fine. And so when I started going to 1 Tylenol and an ibuprofen, I found that I could go a whole lot longer without a pain pill. So I was able to wean down off of that completely, and I did. And then I just, you know, I just felt slightly sore once in a while, and it was nothing, it really was nothing bad. My husband, I would, you know, he would catch me, I'd sweep the floor. They tell you, you are not allowed to sweep the floor. You're not supposed to put, the vacuum cleaner was like an absolute no-no. And at first I thought it was a funny joke that the nurse and the doctor would say, no vacuuming for 6 months or 3 months or whatever. I thought it was a joke. I thought they were telling my husband that as a joke to, you know, say, you do the vacuuming, like to give me a break kind of thing. But no, they meant it. And I will tell you, I have a Dyson, so they have pretty good suction. And I'll tell you what, I used that Dyson and vacuumed the floor. I guess it had been, I want to say like 6 weeks out, and I used that Dyson to vacuum the floor, and I paid for it dearly the next day. I was very sore. I hadn't taken anything for pain in a bit, and I ended up taking something for pain for that day, and I'm like, I am not doing that again. So I'm like, I'm just gonna have to let that go for a bit. I'm back to vacuuming the floor now, but you know, mopping, vacuuming, reaching over your head, and you know, when at the 3-month mark, well, they released me to do whatever. At the 2-week mark, they said, listen to your body. If you feel pain, stop, don't do it. But they still limited me on the vacuuming. And so I'm like, okay. So I would do, you know, I would sweep the floor. because I couldn't vacuum. But I'd sweep the floor, and I noticed that that I would still need to, I was still wearing a bra 24/7. That was because you bend over and everything pulls. If you lay on your back, everything pulls, and it was just uncomfortable. But was it excruciating or anything like that? No, it wasn't. I did wear a surgical bra all the way up to definitely the 3-month mark, and even after that, it was just more comfortable to wear. The bras that I wore were from Heart and Core. They are for cardiac surgery, and they have Velcro in the front, so it makes it really easy to close, and you can close them, to the tightness or looseness that you want. And the same thing, the tops over your shoulders are Velcro, so you can tighten them as tight or loose as you want. And then they also have like a little pillow that goes down in the center, which looks really funny, but hey, it felt comfortable. It kept everything off of the incision, because as the nerves start to heal, I'm going to tell you, you feel the tingling sensation, and the pillow just, I don't know, it just made it more comfortable for me. At any rate, so this week I go for my 6-month checkup with the cardiologist. I don't know after that if they're going to make it once a year, if they're going to want to see me after the CAT scan in November or what. But I'll let you know how that goes. But I am back to, doing all the things that I did before. And that is when I realized how much it was really affecting me, because part of it was fear-based, a fear that, oh, it's going to burst. When they did the surgery, I was at a 5. They had, up until that point, they had been saying, I was a 4.6, 4.6, 4.6. Then it went, and that's what they thought it was at. It was a 4.6. When they did the CAT scan, where they put the iodine through the catheter and did the CAT scan that way, that's when they said, okay, we need to go forward and do something. And that's when I found out that I was closer to a 5. And then, there's some people that are running around, they've got, maybe a 4.6, 4.7, and they're like, when do you have surgery? They're having, they're going for checkups. They might be every year, once every 6 months. You could always request to see a thoracic surgeon. Now, that's who does the a cardiac thoracic surgeon. These are the ones that specialize in that surgery and in that field. And what he had told me, which really made a lot of sense, and this is why he moved to do something at the time he did, though the cardiologist was using the doing the echocardiogram, the ultrasound and stuff to monitor the aneurysm. What the thoracic surgeon had explained to me is, you don't know how much of the lining on the inside has worn. And you could have a portion of the wall could be thinner than another portion of the wall on your artery. And that made sense to me. So there could be, you could see a diameter of the artery on there, but it wasn't giving like the exact measurements. And that's what, that's what they're looking at. Like, what is the thickness of the artery? What's the thickness of the wall all the way around? And at what point do they intervene? Because you could get a tear and, a leaking, and that's, you get yourself in an emergency situation. So I was really glad that, I went and talked to the thoracic surgeon, and when he explained it to me that way, it made a lot of sense, even though I didn't want to hear anything that he had to say. I did, but I didn't. It was fear-based kind of stuff. And so if you're a person that has got, so say you've got an ascending aorta aneurysm like I had, and you're seeing a cardiologist, and they're looking at it, they're doing the yearly or every 6 month, the the ultrasound of your heart valves and all that, you can always at any point ask, can I get a referral to a cardiac thoracic surgeon? Because one, you're able to kind of get an idea who you want to use in advance, and they explain things to you in a way that you understand and you feel good about. But also they can explain from their perspective what they're looking at when they make the surgery decision. And it just is, it can give you peace of mind. And I will tell you that though I told you in our last video that I did not, though I was eligible for the mechanical valve, and at first that was the option that I was opting to go for, but I felt really comfortable with letting my surgeon make the decision. And, there's the valves come in different sizes and stuff, but you are built different and unique to each person. And so not all valves are equal. And so I just told him, for him to make the choice. And he knew my activities. He knew that I hunt and that I butcher meat. So there's a possibility I could, cut my finger if I was in a tree stand, or if I was hiking and I fell, which doesn't happen often, but I would say, I don't know, once a year, once every 2 years, I definitely would fall down, hiking and things like that. And I would just do things that were just more little minimal things around the house. Well, when you've got a mechanical valve, you're on blood thinners. And those blood thinners, if you fall, if you cut yourself, if you hit your head, if you get into a car accident and hit the windshield, you can get yourself in an emergency situation. So that also mattered to me, So that's why I said, to the physician, you choose. Whatever you choose, you guys choose. My husband told my husband and the doctor, you guys choose. But, and so there's pros and cons to all of it. And like I said in the last video, when you get a mechanical valve, there's no guarantee that you're not going to end up with surgery again. I have known or read quite a few stories where people have ended up having to go have surgery again, whether it be the mechanical valve failed or they had something else they needed to have done, and they couldn't go through the valve because there was a mechanical valve that is automatically going. This thing's automatically going with your blood pumping. And so they could not do, it's what they call a TAVR, which is going through your artery, to do the valve. And so it's like, you think about all that stuff and it's like, what's the right way to go? I didn't know. But the valve I ended up with was an Empress valve, an Edwards Empress valve. And, they put those things, when they make them, they put them on like a machine that sits in just nothing but pumps. And so it exercises that thing. And this is how they find out how long those things will last. Well, they said they so far they're guesstimating up to 10, 11 years, but they said it's very possible that they could last 20, 25 years or more. And it just depends. But there's nothing that would make it fail, but the machine they've put it on, this is what they're guesstimating that it's going to last. And then they're going by the number, the people that have had the valve and how they have pushed it in their own life, like their activities and things like that. So I thought, that's not the bad option either. And after I got it, it was so funny because when they did the first CAT scan, the first thing I wanted to do was, because I didn't feel anything inside, I wanted to go look at the images. I wanted to see, did you really do that? Did you really put those things in there? Because I just didn't feel different. I mean, as far as like, I didn't feel like I had something sewn in there, or, like they had done surgery to my heart. I felt the incision from my sternum. I mean, I've had, I broke my ankle both the bones in my ankle, and they had to put those together with plates and screws and everything. And by golly, I felt that, and I still to this day feel the scars from that. I don't feel anything. So when I had gotten the CAT scan done, that was the first thing that I did. I wanted to see this thing. And so I went and looked it up, and it was just pretty neat. It was there. It looked, everything looked normal. The valve they had put in itself, it looked round, you know, like a star, almost like a star that was in, you know, in my heart. I could see that. The valve that they replaced, took my aneurysm out and replaced the valve. It was just a Dacron mesh tubes. I mean, serious, something you could buy at Ace Hardware. I'm not kidding. And that was sewn onto my valve. And I'm thinking, this is just wild. And on the CAT scan, it looked exactly the same. That all looked the same. And I'm like, how do I know that's not the old valve? That thing looks exactly the same. Well, as I turned the image sideways, I could see where it had been sewn in, and it just matched what I had going on beforehand, meaning the material, the valve. Anyway, I just thought that was really neat. But I am just back to I'm just amazed because I'm picking up 40-pound bags of dog food again. I am picking up bags of dirt and moving that because I'm working on my planter beds. You know, now obviously I can vacuum and do all those kinds of things, but I've got my life back, and I didn't realize how much it was really affecting me because I was getting short of breath because of what was going on in my heart. And when I tell you it was instantaneous, when I came off all of the anesthesia and the, medications they had that I was looped up on, when I finally was up to where I could, walk and stuff, it was instant. I mean, I noticed the difference instant. My heart was functioning instantly better. I instantly noticed I wasn't retaining water so much on my right side as I was. I used to go to bed at night, and if I slept on my left side, it almost felt like there was like an obstruction in my throat, but I roll over and I'd sleep on the other side and I felt normal. After the surgery, I don't have that at all. And I don't know what that was. I've had another person that asked if anybody had felt that, and I had. She said her cardiologist said, no, that wouldn't be due to it, but it's gone away. So I'm thinking that aneurysm and the things that were going on were affecting me more than what I thought physically, but that stuff is gone. My fingernails are growing out like crazy. I don't have the water retention I was having, which I was I was contributing that to everything, all kinds of other things. And it wasn't, it was my heart not functioning properly. And so I've noticed just a big difference. And now I'm just on a mission to get all of my health back. Because though I'm 63 years old, I'm not old. I'm not an inactive old person. I don't, it's not about, I just sit and knit. Now I do knit and crochet or whatever, but I am not a feeble person. Now I watch my step because it doesn't matter what entry or exit you go in or out of in my house. We've got stairs. I can't stand that, but I watch myself for that. But I'm not a feeble old person. And I like doing things. I like getting out and doing things. Now I want to be safe when I do it to make sure that I'm totally healed up and all that kind of stuff. But I am going to get my life back. My husband says, we're going to live into our 80s. Let's see if we can do that. If the Lord doesn't take us home first, right? But I don't want to be a broke down 80 years old. I don't want to be an inactive 80 years old. Like I said, I travel home to see my family I go through, say for example, the Atlanta airport. I swear it's almost a mile between the one gate to the next gate for my 2 plane changes through there, because you have to go all the way down to one end, go down the elevator, take a tram, go back up another escalator, and then go all the way back to the end of the gates to get to where I need to go. And I want to always be able to do that. I want to be able to fly. I want to be able to go four-wheeling, fishing, hunting. I want to be able to go do those things. And I'm determined to do that. And I'm going to do it at my pace. I'm not going to beat myself up. You know, there's maybe some things that I surrendered that I'm like, well, you know, I don't need to do that so much like that anymore. But I want to stay healthy. And I'm sure you do too. Anyway, you know, if you're scared to go through the surgery, and like I said, maybe my case was different. Maybe, you know, I don't know. I can't explain it. I just did not have the pain and the complications and the things that other people have had, or some other people have described. Sometimes I wonder, you know, is it just that their pain tolerance is lower? Is it fear-based? You know, what's driving it? And it could be any of those things. But if you're contemplating going, and you know, I'll tell you this, because I talked to somebody recently, and they'll say, you know, the doctors and nurses say, you know, oh, if you had a baby, when they're talking to women, have you had a baby? Well, if you can handle that, you can handle this. It's a different kind of pain for sure. Because when, you know, they're cutting through the sternum. Yeah, and you know, some surgeons don't go through the sternum. Some will go through your rib cage. It depends on what their tried and true method is. But I just, mine was not bad, and my healing went very smooth. I did what the doctors told me to do. I did get up and walk. I did do, you know, I didn't go lifting things I wasn't supposed to lift. I didn't put my arms over my head when he told me not to. And, you know, that's the main thing with that is you want your sternum to heal, but you also don't want your incision messed with. You know, when you take a shower and stuff like that, at first they don't want the shower beating down on your incision. I just didn't have all those problems. But, you know, if you're scared of that kind of stuff, you know, man is appointed only one time to die, and there's that date that's your date, and nothing is going to alter that. And once you resolve to that and you overcome that, I just know this: if I knew then what I know now, I would not have waited. I would have requested to get it done sooner. I would have moved forward sooner, because I literally had stopped living for the 9 years, and that was not worth it to me. The other thing that I have noticed since then, I don't tolerate the BS anymore. I don't have the patience for stupidity. I don't have to be around people that are nasty, rude, that don't have manners. I scroll on. I'm not going to, conversations with people on the phone where it's just a fight or an argument, it's just not worth it. You know, if people believe different than I do or think different than I do, it's not worth it to me to fight and try to get them to think anything different. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it's politics, religion, you know, healthcare, kids, any of that kind of stuff. It just doesn't matter. But also, I'm not willing to allow people with a bad attitude and people that it's like all they are, they just suck the life and the energy out of you. It's like, life's too short. And this is not worth my effort, my energy. I'm not going to do it. And, you know, there's some things that I've taken my hands off, and I do not care to revisit it again. The horse has been run over, buried, and I don't care to dig it up. And that's just that. I think I made, you know, the comment to someone that, you know, once that bridge has been burned, the bridge, the debris from the bridge, you can't see it any longer. There is a river flowing through there. You can see that. And I don't even have the desire to look across the river. You know, my peace is more important than any of that. And that's the way, I mean, that even in my home, it's not even, some things are just not worth arguing over, you know? it, it, Life is just not worth that. It's too precious. Your time's too precious. And you could spend it doing so many other things that are enjoyable, that are going to bring you joy, that bring other people joy. And I'm just not going to waste my time on it. And do I consider it a loss? And oh, is that, I mean, no, nope. You know, people aren't going to give you permission to take time for yourself. People aren't going to give you permission to take care of yourself. People are not going to give you permission to have peace. They are looking for an argument most of the time. And I found through this too, a lot of times, you know, there are people that you find out who you matter to, because they will check on you. They will ask you how you're doing. And the ones that don't, for me, it's like, yeah, I put more effort into them than they won't jump a puddle for me. And it's not that, oh, poor me. It's, wait a minute, I'm pouring way more out of myself, even to the point of losing sleep at night and things like that. Stop. Just stop. It's okay to stop. It's okay to take care of yourself. Get in the bathtub and relax and soak, or in the jacuzzi and soak and enjoy your time. Go buy some flowers and plant them in your yard. Plant them in planter pots. Do the little simple things that seem minor. Do those things. The little things that bring you joy. Do that. And if you don't want to do any of it, if you want to just sit and relax and just enjoy being alive and breathing, do that. When it's all said and done, when you look back on it, I can promise you, like when I was heading up to the surgery, I explained it like it was almost like hitting a wall, and it's like my memory or my thinking just went down to tunnel vision, where I just couldn't think anything. When I realized I had done that, there were so many things that just weren't important. It just doesn't matter. And if you weren't here tomorrow, all those problems will be there for someone else. All those things will be there for someone else. And there's just not, you don't need to wear yourself out about it. You don't need to stress yourself out about it. Life after you will go on. People will figure it out. They will take care of their stuff. They'll take care of their problem. Even whether they miss you or not when you're gone, that's not your business. What they think of you is not your business, you know? And so there's a lot of stuff that I've just let go of on the emotional side, you know? But some things I would just worry myself to the point of, I've got to fix this problem. I've got to fix this problem. Now, it's not my problem. I didn't make the mess. It's not my problem to fix. It's, you know, it's a heartache because there's people that you really love and you care about. But, you know, everybody has their own cross to bear. Everyone has their own walk in life, and they have to, they get the fruits of their labor, but they also have to suffer the consequences of bad decisions or roads that they choose to travel. And it's okay. And because you've had to do your own, you've had to do yours, right? Anyway, I hope some of this made sense to you today. I just wanted to check in. And so this is my heart post for the day. And so if you've enjoyed it, click like. Maybe you'd subscribe. It's up to you. No big deal if you don't. And I will see you next time. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.